You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Okay, Glenn, we've got breaking news here. Earlier today, there was this fiery exchange between Judge Merchan and the Trump team's witness, Robert Costello. And at one point, the judge actually even made the press leave the courtroom. So we didn't know what was said until now, because the record was just released, and I'm going to read what was said. I'm also going to put it right here on this screen. There was a brief exchange where Judge Merchan explained to Robert Costello about decorum in the courtroom, but then apparently Costello was staring down Judge Merchan, and so Merchan said, "Are you staring me down right now? Clear the courtroom, please." Courtroom was cleared. Merchan said, "Your conduct is contemptuous right now. I'm putting you on notice that your conduct is contemptuous. If you try to stare me down one more time, I will remove you from the stand." He then asked Trump's attorneys, "I will strike his entire testimony. Do you understand me?" To which his attorney said yes. Then Costello said, "Can I say something, please?" And Merchan said, No, this is not a conversation." So, Glenn, presumably, this witness, Robert Costello, was brought in to undermine Michael Cohen's case. That's why Trump's lawyers brought him in. But he already undermined every shred of his credibility as a witness, didn't he?
He actually undermined Donald Trump's defense. I have never seen an attorney witness behave like this. Who would have thought that another attorney witness would have made Michael Cohen look like the king of circumspection and decorum? That is quite a feat. Now, I will say, Michael Cohen, through nearly 25 hours of testimony, actually kept his cool, kept his composure. This clown, I'm going to call him what he is, this clown, Bob Costello, who was a Trump loyalist and, Rudy Giuliani's man, he took the stand and he played the fool. He was disagreeing with rulings on objections by Judge Merchan. And he was saying things like, ridiculous, geez, strike that. I'm sorry, strike that? First of all, only a judge is allowed to say, strike that. And, you could see it just kind of jumped off the page when you're reading the transcript. The steam must have been coming out of Judge Merchan's ears. And he said, you are engaged in contemptuous behavior. I mean, if he kept it up, he probably would have been held in criminal contempt. I've never seen anything like it from an attorney witness. In fact, I've never seen anything like it with a couple of exceptions, Brian. Some of the defendants I prosecuted, some of the defendants who were on trial for murder, some of the defendants who were RICO defendants, I've seen defendants take the stand. I was cross-examining them and play the fool. I've had them cuss me out on the stand. But to see an actual member of the bar, an attorney, behave like that was pretty alarming. But here's the thing, the jury will associate that man and his performance with Donald Trump. And if ever they could have sort of distracted from the couple of points they did score on Michael Cohen's cross-examination, boy, they accomplished it in spades by putting that stone-cold clown on the stand.
Well, Glenn, these people had to know what they're doing. There had to be at least some modicum of a conversation beforehand. It's not like somebody just came on the stand completely cold and decided to be as hostile as humanly possible to this judge. So, assuming that this was to some degree on purpose, what's the strategy here?
All I can think of is that the strategy was political, not legal, because there is no way they curried favor with a single juror in the jury box by putting that guy on and having him play the fool. Because I'm telling you, the jurors will associate that kind of behavior with Donald Trump, the defendant who put that witness on the stand. And I really can't understand it because the substance of his testimony, getting away from the contemptuous behavior for a minute, the substance of his testimony was like, well, Michael Cohen, back when he was still aligned with Donald Trump, said Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong, said Donald Trump didn't know anything about the hush money payments. Well, yeah, duh. Michael Cohen testified about that for 25 hours. So what he was really doing was corroborating what Michael Cohen had already said, that he lied to try to help Donald Trump before he, Michael Cohen, flipped and started providing truthful information about the crimes of Donald Trump. So I cannot figure out why in the world they put that man on the stand.
Well, look, either Costello is just a huge blowhard, or he was doing what everybody on the Trump team does, which is to perform for an audience of one. But if he's performing for Trump, isn't it bad to literally hurt Trump's case then?
It is bad, but Donald Trump is not a shrewd legal tactician. And just as I suspect, as I think you just alluded to, Donald Trump probably bullied his lawyers into putting that bonehead Bob Costello on the stand to play the fool. It sort of feels like much of the way folks that Donald Trump has summoned to the courtroom have performed. He got everybody dressed up in the uniform, the blue suit and the red tie, all these political clowns, and they all came in en masse and sat there. And, I don't know if they gritted on the witnesses or not, but those kind of theatrics are not lost on the jurors. If they know who any of these, lesser members of Congress are, they're going to hold it against Donald Trump. I absolutely believe that. What might have made a difference is if Donald Trump's family came, if Ivanka came, if Melania came, if Tiffany came, if Barron came, and they sort of showed their support for their father, for their husband, by sort of sitting in the audience and behaving themselves and, looking like they cared one whit about what happened to their dad or their husband. But nobody like that showed up. Just these, red tie wearing congressional clowns. And I'm sorry I'm using this language, but that's how these people are comporting themselves, like stone cold clowns.
I mean, what do you really need your wife and children there when you have Bob Good and Vivek Ramaswamy and the rest of these Republican ducklings who've imprinted onto Donald Trump, really, at the end of the day? Isn't that what really matters, that you have a bunch of sycophants behind you dressed like you? Glenn, 1 to 10, how damaging was today to Donald Trump's case? I mean, this was presumably the only witness that the defense is going to call, and they kind of blew it on this just, this clown of a witness.
Usually a witness who comes and goes as quickly as Bob Costello can only do but so much damage. But I actually think he was a pretty devastating witness to Trump's defense on both form and substance. Think about this. Michael Cohen held his own for 25 hours. And I did a video earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, the days all blend together, where I said, the Trump defense team probably scored 2 points off of Michael Cohen on cross-examination. The problem is the prosecutors scored the other 98 points on Michael Cohen's direct and rebuttal testimony. But when you put a guy like Bob Costello up, the form really hurts Donald Trump because, as I've said a couple of times now, he played the fool. He was contemptuous. I mean, he just incurred the wrath of a really good, thoughtful, circumspect judge, Judge Merchan. So on the form, he really hurt Donald Trump. But let's talk about the substance. First of all, when all you can offer as perhaps your only witness of substance is a guy who says, yeah, Michael Cohen was still protecting Donald Trump in 2018 before he flipped by saying that Donald Trump didn't know anything about the hush money payments that he, Michael Cohen, made. If I'm a juror and that's the only witness of substance you offer me, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, that's all you've got? You really have nothing to meet the force of the mountain of incriminating evidence, including the evidence that corroborated Michael Cohen's testimony? That's the best you've got? Man, it looks like we're about ready to get back into the deliberation room and find you guilty.
Glenn, you mentioned your channel. Just a quick note for the viewers watching right now. For those watching, if you want to support the work that we do, please make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Glenn is on his way up to 1 million subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed to his channel yet, please make sure to subscribe. My channel is on its way up to 3 million, so again, to support the work that we do, please make sure to subscribe. Okay, Glenn, assuming this is the final witness that Trump's team is going to call, what happens next? Where do we go from here?
So we're going to go into closing arguments. Judge Merchan said because of the long holiday weekend and because I think one or more of the jurors have some travel plans in place, he has set closing arguments to begin on Tuesday, so about 1 week from now. And I expect closing arguments will take the better part of a day, perhaps, 8 hours of a trial day, and they'll get through the closing argument of the prosecutor, the closing argument of the defense attorney, and then because the government has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the prosecutors get the last word in their rebuttal argument. And that's when we tend to save a lot of the good stuff because the defense doesn't get a chance to stand up and respond to or rebut what the prosecutors say in their rebuttal arguments. And I'd been making mental notes of some of what I saw play out during the course of this trial. And I actually think Todd Blanche provided a gift for the prosecutors that they will unwrap for the jury in their rebuttal argument. And I really look forward to hearing how the prosecution's rebuttal argument unfolds.
So those closing arguments are going to happen all on one day, on Tuesday? Is that what you're expecting?
They may carry over into a second day, but it won't be too long after the closing arguments take place that the jury will get it to begin deliberating. And then, all bets are off. A jury can deliberate 10 minutes or 10 days, completely up to their discretion, how long they believe they need to review the evidence before, they can reach verdicts.
So we can actually see a verdict announced on Tuesday evening, is that correct?
We could see a verdict within hours of the jury receiving the case to begin their deliberations. I would suspect, we're more likely to see a verdict somewhere along the sort of Thursday, Friday time frame, assuming they get the case, late Tuesday or maybe on Wednesday.
Okay, so if they go a full day on Tuesday and there's basically no more time to deliberate, they won't just lock them in deliberation for the rest of the night. They'll basically say, okay, court's out of session now, so you can go home, and then tomorrow the first thing you're going to do is start deliberation. Is that right?
Exactly. We no longer sequester juries. We no longer make them sit in the jury deliberation room until they reach a verdict. Those were the bad old days when, there was a perception that verdicts were coerced out of juries. So, they'll deliberate a full day once they get the case from, 9:30 in the morning until about 4:30 in the afternoon. Then they'll be released for the day. They'll go home. They'll come back and they'll resume their deliberations the next morning. And that will be the pattern until they reach verdicts.
Okay, well, this is the moment we've been waiting for everybody watching right now. This trial is finally winding down. We are getting dangerously close to a conviction of Donald Trump in his first criminal trial here. So if you're watching right now and you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. Again, the links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Teller Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.